Howdy, YouTubers. Hey, 3 weeks ago or so, I made a video on purchasing property in the Philippines. Wasn't as easy as we thought it was going to be. In fact, it was more like a nightmare unraveling before our eyes. And I'm here with my good friend Rick Baker of The Good, the Bad, the Philippines, and we were discussing property, and Rick said, "Well, Roy, we have to make a video." So Rick and I ended up making a video, and it was how long, Rick?
It was over an hour and a half, but we're breaking it up into three segments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
The second segment went up last night, so it's online right now.
hey, so The Good, the Bad, the Philippines, Rick Baker, and you can hear the video that we made a while back. They've had a child, and his wife has had to do some editing, and him and I we chat a lot, so it was pretty hard for her to do that. But I wanted to bring Rick on the channel because Rick had an interesting story. You hear from most people, that the safest way to buy property in the Philippines is buy a condo, because you can't actually physically own the land. And if you get tied up with a Filipina, of course, we can go on into all them legal loopholes there, but we're not going to go there today. But everyone considers going to the Philippines and buying a condominium is the safest way to go, and it's pretty fail safe because you're dealing with multi-million-dollar companies in the Philippines. So it's a win-win, right? Not until you hear Rick's side of the story. Let's go, brother.
Well, when Jen and I were doing the LDR thing, the long distance relationship, she was working in Manila, but from a location called Cuyopo, Nueva Ecija, which is the province. And she had quite a commute. Working 6 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day. Had one day off, and commuted 4 to 6 hours because she had a son, family back in Cuyopo. So 4 to 6 hours to get up there. Got to spend a few hours with him, and then right back on the bus and everything else to get back to Manila. I just it was just life for her. She didn't complain about it. She did, just. But I listened, and I just thought it after I visited a couple of times. I thought, well, it would be nice if maybe, because I was looking at wanting to retire there anyway. Um, at the time I wasn't contemplating marriage or anything. I just, we were dating. I was coming to see her 3 times a year whenever I had a break from my job. And but I thought, well, I'll purchase a condo. And one of the times I was there, she couldn't. There were some days she couldn't get off work. The companies here make it very difficult for their employees to take time off. And even though we've been planning this for months, me coming for the week, and it's still her job was in jeopardy if she pushed the issue. And you can only say you have sore eyes many times. So she had to work a couple days, so I went on my own. I started researching some condos, lots of condo developers. Some of the big ones are SMDC, DMCI, Philinvest, and there's even more now after COVID. There's quite a few. Some
What
coming
city?
from just
What city was this in, Rick?
well, Metro Manila, but specifically the condo that I located and decided to purchase was in Parañaque, which is just south of Pasay, which is where Solaire Resort is. So
Okay.
one van ride for her to get to work and back, and it really saved her as far as having more time for herself, for rest and everything, and still had the commute, going to Cuyopo, but she at least was able to get more sleep and rest and things here in the metro, or there in the Metro Manila area. And I liked it because it was close to everything, but just outside of the expensive stuff. So I was looking to do something moderately priced, but close enough to where I could still get into Pasay or BGC or Bonifacio or whatever if I needed to. And so that seemed like a good location to me. The property was being built these things are, they sell them when they're in development. Uh, they tout that as being the cheapest way to purchase them. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but it worked for me because I wasn't going to be retiring for at least 2 years anyway at that point. So I went and I found the place I wanted to go. The development is going to be 4 mid-rise buildings, 3 pools, walking trail. I mean, it was really well designed. DMCI, the company that was building this one, they do a good job of designing their properties, and their stuff is pretty good quality. It seems to hold up. If any will hold up 50 years, like they say around here, I don't know. But anyway, that's what I went with. I put a down payment, and I started making payments every month. Auto drafted out of my account. I
Now,
set up.
for your
Mhm.
viewers, how much did you put for a down payment originally? So we can kind of do the
Oh,
math as you're telling your story here, how much you have invested
gosh,
over
you're asking me to think back several years, Roy. I
Sorry, buddy. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I don't. It wasn't. I don't remember it being a huge down payment. It didn't
Mhm.
seem unreasonable to me.
Okay.
Um, and really, they called it a holding fee to kind of hold the condo until you started your payment, got all your payments and stuff in order. Um, and there were some hoops we had to jump through, but they had the system down. I had to have a tax ID number in the Philippines, and so they arranged for all that to happen, and then I set up a bank account with Philippine National Bank because they actually have branches in New York and Los Angeles,
Okay.
and I could set up now here in the Philippines. I wasn't permitted to have a bank account because I'm a foreigner. I wasn't married to a Filipina and I wasn't a resident here. So all those things were strikes against me. But by doing it the way we did, I was able to make my payments every month on time. I also arranged through Philippine National Bank that after the end of the 2 year, because it was going to take them 2 years to build the condo and turn it over to me. And so I was making those payments every month for 2 years. And at the end of that 2 years, there was a certain amount of money left that needed to be paid for the closing, and I arranged all that. And that was interesting. All the stuff I had to provide Philippine National Bank in New York City to be able to get all that set up. But they were wonderful. They really worked with me. Were very patient. But we got everything that they needed to have to do the final loan. And I had a home in the Dominican that I was hoping would have sold by then, that I could just pay cash when it was all over with.
Sure.
I really didn't want to do a loan, but I did it to be, have to be smooth and have no problems at the end, just in case the house didn't sell. And and so we rocked along 2 years. No, just didn't give it another thought. I kind of surprised Jen, so I don't remember exactly when I told her about it. At some point I had to, because I can't remember what happened, but I had to end up telling her that what I had done. And of course, she was excited. She loves Manila. I hate Manila. But I can tolerate it, and like I said, it's almost like a little vacation. Now, whether I could have stayed in it months at a time, I don't know. That would have been challenging for me. At least it had some open space and things to do on the property. Um, yeah, so it was just a labor of love, is what it was. So when it came right down to it, when it was time for turnover, this was towards the middle to end of COVID. Things were crazy during COVID. But I will say that as much as the government shut everything down here and locked people in their homes, if you were over 60, you could not
Yes.
leave your home. If you were under, I think it's 18, you couldn't leave your home. They had no school to speak of. They did online stuff. It was all just kind of a really sad what they did to the people here, but they did it. And but they didn't stop development. The development companies were still able to build, right? They were
Okay.
still able to push on. So um, it came down to time to getting ready for turnover. I got an email from the developer saying that it was time for turnover. The unit was going to be, da 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 da, but we need to get the closing fees paid before we actually turn it over. And it came to like 450,000. I don't know the exact amount. It's 400. It was close. It was close to $500,000 for the closing fees. They have just a
Folks,
buttload.
that's roughly around 10,000 US dollars.
Yeah. And they wanted it quickly, right? And that's a lot of money. And it's not that easy to transfer that amount of money quickly. But I kind of found a workaround, and I was able to transfer it to my girlfriend's BDO account, and DMCI also banked with BDO. So all she then had to do was go to the bank and sign it over to their account. So we made that work, right? Jumped through a lot of hoops, got it done. Very stressful. PNB was, between me and PNB in New York, everybody was stressed, but we got it done. Dude, 2-3 days later,
this is the good part. This is the good part.
Yeah, this is the great part. 2 or 3 days later, I get another email from the developer saying, "Oh, due to COVID, your condo is not going to be ready for turnover for months. Well, I lost it. I guess the old PTSD just kind of popped up somewhere, and I lost it. I was so angry that how convenient that they needed this money right now for closing, but yet knowing, I guarantee you, knowing that they were not turning that condo over. The building wasn't even finished, apparently. So, and the condo was on the first floor. Nothing. Anyway, I got angry. I told them, okay, I'm done. This is unethical. What you're doing is wrong. You can't do this to people. I want my money back. Then I started getting these emails quoting this law called the Merced Law. I think I'm saying that correctly. And that law basically was put in place to kind of protect the developers. But it was designed to protect the developers from somebody defaulting on a loan, on payments and things of that nature. In other words, had I not made my payments and so forth, and I just decided to back out of it, well, the developer's protected to a degree, and they only have to refund 50% of any monies you've already paid. But that wasn't the situation here. I never defaulted. I was always in the right.
This was more of a breach of contract.
This was just a failure on their part I met all my obligations in the contract, but the one that said that they will turn over at this time, they didn't meet that. And
sure.
And they do have little clauses in there that there's some things that can delay that, but right up to the closing date, they made me believe that I was getting my condo, right? Getting my condo, when in fact that didn't happen. So I told them 50% not gonna work. I said, I didn't send you all this money for the last 2 years for you just to keep half of it, and I have nothing to show for it. So eventually, after trying to work with them, it was very challenging, by the way. Nobody really wanted to respond. A lot of the responses were canned emails. You're dealing with a very large corporation, I'm sure, and nobody knows what the other office is doing or saying, and it was really it was just all a big runaround. And so I hired an attorney, and I knew it was an uphill battle. I mean, you're talking about a foreigner fighting I believe at the time, the number one developer in the Philippines. That's not a good scenario.
It's like fighting Google.
Well, they have an entire department of legal people, and I'm sure they're in people's pockets everywhere you can imagine. And it happens. Don't pretend like it doesn't, folks. It happens here a lot. There's a lot of under the table stuff goes on here, and I'm
sure that happens right here in the United States too.
It does. It's really part of the culture here. Anyway, I found an attorney. He understood where I was coming from. He actually was pretty pissed. He's like, this is just wrong. And so we started that process, and it's been a very lengthy, we're talking years This happened years ago. Um,
Now, how much money are we talking, Rick? I mean, you made payments for 2 years, and then you sent, you know, 500,000. How much money are we talking over the course of what, you know, half or
um,
3/4 of a decade?
if it's just the money I gave them, not considering interest or anything else of
Mhm.
that nature, I think it came out to about 1.5 million
Okay,
pesos.
we're talking
Which is not
roughly
a
30,000 US, correct?
yeah, and but you know what? By God, I worked hard for that money. It was
It's
part of
the
my retirement
principle of the
savings.
matter.
It is, and
Yes.
so um, yeah. Anyway, we went. We had to go before a commission that oversees the developers in the Philippines, and even though this is not over, I can speak to what has happened up to this point.
Sure.
And basically, the commission said, DMCI, you can't do this. You need to we're not going to tell you to give him his money back, but you need to give him the condo that you promised him or one comparable to it. And so, everything takes like months. So when my attorney sends something, it takes months for their attorney to respond, and it takes months for the commission to respond. And nothing, even though it's all electronic, nothing happens in a timely manner. And so this has just been going on and on and on and on and on. Well, it got right down to it. DMCI said, we're sorry, we've sold the condo. Somebody's living in it. So not only did they have my money, but they now have somebody else's money and somebody's living in it. And then they said, oh, we don't have another comparable condo. So my attorney offers, he said, um, they said something about giving me my money back. Well, he said that that you had that opportunity years ago. You passed on that. So the very least is you need to give him his money back with interest and with penalties. And it needs to be this amount. And it wasn't another. He didn't pack onto it. It was interest for the money that they had been holding all this time,
Sure.
and and attorney's fees. He said he's had been out all these attorney fees. You need to reimburse him for that. Very fair stuff. And we thought, okay, surely they're gonna no. They said no, we're not doing that. And so now we're in the process of waiting for the commission to send some kind of an order to the sheriff to vacate the condominium. So not only is it, this is a huge problem for me, it's now about to become a problem for another family.
Wow.
And I cannot imagine that this developer could feel any pride in what it is that they're doing. So that's nothing's happened yet, but that's the point we're at. I don't know if I'll ever see my money. I just I will tell you, what was supposed to have been a very easy thing to do has turned out to be really a nightmare. And
Yeah.
and of
Amen.
course, life has moved on, and we've had to go in different directions because the condo was out of the picture, no
Mhm.
longer an option. So we've moved in a different direction, and so I just don't. I can't tell you how it's gonna actually resolve, but we've tried. We've really tried to be very fair and give them outs all along the way. And for whatever reason, they just no, we're not doing
Well,
that.
it's funny because you had told me this story, you know, months ago, and just this morning I actually had a realtor in the Philippines through a mutual friend of ours contact me about getting into a condo on the ground floor of development.
Oh yeah, that's the best time to do it.
Instantly, by God, I thought of you, Rick, and I ran away so fast from that conversation. I am not interested. Thank you very much.
Well, and something else you need to know, and the only reason I know this is because Jen has a former work associate who, with her significant other, also bought a condo in the same building, same development. Which, by the way, DMCI now has developments coming up all over the place. Batangas. I mean, they're. I get ads every day in my Facebook. Um, my
Oh,
Facebook stuff that's saying, be a part of this DMCI developer or this one. And they're all beautiful. They're absolutely good. They're like little resorts and they're very tempting. But I know for a fact this couple that is living in that development, they were very clear with Jen about what all they had to pay after they closed and got moved in. Then all of a sudden, all these other fees started coming in,
mm,
and they what they do is the developer turns it over to an association type of thing. I don't know exactly what they call it. That's supposed to oversee the maintenance of the facility, and there's a lot to maintain. Uh, but they pass all of that on to the condo owners, and apparently that can turn out to be quite a bit of money
mhm.
on a regular basis. It's not really divulged to you during this whole buying process. It's really kind of a surprise, and it's all kind of based on how many condos are sold, how many people are living in the property, and that could potentially be a very large sum of money on a monthly basis
And
that you're
that
going to be
changes
for the
yearly.
for the life of your
Sure.
ownership.
I mean, maintenance
Another,
obviously goes up the longer the condo's in existence. And,
yeah,
I've heard them horror stories, even in this country, that the same thing happens.
and although the amenities are wonderful, I mean, the three different pools, basketball court, weight room, workout facility, walking trails, all those are wonderful,
Hmm.
but they have to be maintained.
Yes.
And the developers out of the picture. They're done. Once they sell their stuff, they turn tail and run. So it really is something you need to think about. You need to be okay with potentially, and then also electrical and water, all of that the buildings themselves and the amenities use, that's all passed on to the condo owners. So it's not just your water and your electricity. You're taking a share of everything, all the lighting in the facility, everything. And we're talking about 12-story buildings. There's four of them, and two or three floors underground. Um, Something else you need to remember: parking. If you intend to have a car, which most foreigners end up doing here, because we're comfortable having our own car and being able to move around when we want. Public transportation, although it's here, is not always easy. You ought to see this, and I'm not a big. I mean, I compared to you, dude, I'm short. So, but you ought to see me getting in a tricycle. I fill up the whole tricycle. Anyway, parking is you don't get a parking spot. There's parking under the condos, but you pay for that, and that parking spot is going to be a million plus for that parking space, and that's something else they don't really talk about.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Anyway, you just need to be aware and if you've got plenty of money, and that's the kind of stuff's not a big deal to you, then I'm sure it'll be fine. And if you've got a steady income for the rest of your life, you really probably have no problems. As far as a lot of people tell me they do this for income purposes, that might be if you had something right across the street from MOA, like Shell residences and some of those that are in that area. That's probably pretty good idea because you could pretty much keep it rented out a lot of the time. But where
Sure.
I was buying, there's really nothing out that way from a tourist standpoint that somebody would want to rent your condo. So this is that's something else you need to keep in mind. What are you planning to do with it? Are you going to live in it? Or are you just going to rent it
Sure.
out? And then when you come, you'll stay there whatever week or so that you're there. Um, yeah, all those things have to be considered. I'm talking too much, Roy.
No, that's okay. We're gonna in a few minutes we'll break and then we'll start a new meeting. Because
Okay,
remember, Zoom only allows us so long and it's already given me a warning.
8 minutes and 21 seconds remaining. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. So folks, that's why I wanted to bring Rick on to let you see that, even buying a condo is not as simple as you think it is. Now, he could have let the developer just kick him in the shorts and waited till God knows when, and then just been happy with what he got in the end. And he chose to fight back. And well, we've all heard stories about foreigners in the court system in the Philippines. I guess this is one to keep an eye on. And let's just say that hopefully the Philippine court system can be just as viable as our court system in the U.S. And we'll find that out at a later date, because he's got another interesting story about a land purchase in Luzon, and how that would have went sour. So I've learned a lot from him, and I hope that you all can learn a lot from him also, because it's some of this stuff is pretty shocking. And you know,
Let's learn. Let's learn from Rick Baker's misery.
Oh, we don't see this stuff, and you know, in the United States, I mean, we might hear a story once in a while, you know, my brother's uncle's nephew, but I mean, in the Philippines, it's rampant.
Leaving this place, the sun's about to break. You're riding shotgun.